Coming into the 2017 through 2018 NBA season, nobody knew what to think of the new-look 76ers. Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were both finally healthy, Dario Saric was coming off a great second half of his rookie season, and the team lucked out in the 2017 draft and landed star point guard Markelle Fultz with the first overall pick. So talent-wise, this team looked to be one of the best in the league. But with their most experienced player of this big four being Dario Saric, someone who just finished his rookie year the following season, this team didn't seem to be playoff bound in the slightest. Still, the hype for the 76ers was real this year as the process was finally seeming to come together. And now, 82 games later, the 76ers find themselves with the third seed in the Eastern Conference, ending the season with an astounding 16-game winning streak that shook the entire NBA. Now, heading into the playoffs, nobody wants to face Philly, with teams like the Washington Wizards even commenting on how they were relieved to play the number 1 seed Raptors in the first round rather than the 76ers. Today, let's take a deeper look at this team and examine whether or not they have the elements dynasties in the past have had to determine how deep they can make it in this year's playoffs. Let's start off looking at some of the greatest all-time NBA dynasties: Bill Russell's Celtics, Michael Jordan's Bulls, Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal's Lakers, as well as this year's Golden State Warriors team with a core of Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. These teams have become great due to them having the 3 layers of a winning roster. The first and most important layer is the stars, the face of the franchise that is simply untradeable. When mentioning some of the greatest all-time teams in NBA history just earlier in this video, I stated some of the star players that played on those teams, because every basketball fan is aware of the effect they had on creating whatever dynasty they were a part of. Without them, there is no dynasty. Boston is nothing without Bill Russell in the 60s. The Bulls are nothing without Jordan in the 90s. All great teams have this guy. Now, it may seem incredibly difficult to get a guy like this on your team, but when we really do look at the NBA, even the worst of teams have at least one all-star caliber talent. The Grizzlies have Marc Gasol, the Suns have Devin Booker, and the Knicks have Kristaps Porzingis. However, talent as great as these guys can't single-handedly lead their team to a championship or even close to a spot in the playoffs, because teams with 1 star are missing 2/3 of the deeper layers required to be able to dominate in any era of professional basketball. In Philly's case, Joel Embiid looks to be this generation's Hakeem Olajuwon, while Ben Simmons looks like a scary mix of LeBron James and Magic Johnson, so they clearly have the first layer down. After the playoffs, we will talk about Markelle Fultz a bit more in the future with the 76ers, because right now he is a huge question mark on the roster, but he could also be another future star. But with the fact being that a lot of teams out there have these star players in this day and age of professional basketball, has made it very difficult to simply win with just this one layer of talent, because the second, harder to find layer in all great teams are the glue guys, the role players. Because as great as some players are, nobody is a perfect basketball player. Even guys as great as Michael Jordan and LeBron James have off nights. And this is when role players have to come together and lead their team to victory. Oftentimes in the playoffs, bench depth determines who wins entire series when both teams have stars of equal or even skill. And this couldn't be more true for the 76ers. In their first game of the playoffs versus the Miami Heat, it was Marco Bellinelli, JJ Redick, and Ersan Ilyasova who were the 3 leading scorers for Philadelphia, combining for 70 total points. Imagine subtracting all of those points from the contest. The Sixers not only lose the game, but they get destroyed. Instead of getting an overload of star players like the Thunder and Timberwolves, it is far more effective to have 1 or 2 franchise icons, with the rest of the roster being role players ready to step up when they have to. And the third layer that all great teams have is a great coaching staff or group of people behind the scenes to help bring great teams together. A lot of times on this channel, we have talked about the single biggest mistake a franchise can make: overloading their team with big names and big talent. It's up to coaches, owners, GMs, and everyone else off the court to prevent things like this from happening. They have to assemble a team with these first 2 layers before being able to properly coach and organize them in order to make them able to play together and win. Because without chemistry, talent will get you actually nowhere. Everyone has to be on the same page and on one same game plan and willing to play their role without complaint. You really think the Boston Celtics, the team that lost their 2-star players this season, would be able to even compete against the Milwaukee Bucks, a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, Eric Bledsoe, and Chris Middleton, without coaching and chemistry stronger than this star-packed team? Of course not. And due to the variety of scenarios all teams have to face throughout the gruesome 82-game seasons, all 3 layers are required out of a franchise to form a dynasty, because flexibility is the strongest asset any team can obtain. And while all the talent and balance on Philly's team is great and all, the players alone wouldn't be able to take their game to the next level the way they did near the end of this season. The coaches had to make rotation and chemistry changes in order to switch the identity of Philadelphia around, transforming them into the scariest team to the league after a mediocre start to the season. Just to think his front office started with with actually nothing, losing an NBA record of 28 consecutive games just 2 years ago in the 2015 through 2016 season, a year in which they won 10 total games, is astounding. Even Phil Jackson, the man most people believe is the greatest all-time coach in NBA history, couldn't dig New York out of the holes they had gotten themselves into when he was named president of the Knicks. So this is just more evidence that Philadelphia has really lucked out with their coaching staff. So yeah, quite honestly, the 76ers have made it. The road was rocky, but the process actually did pan out pretty nice. Now, I was going to add a fourth layer that all great dynasties have about something related to a wide variety of ages throughout teams, but when we look at the 76ers, does this even matter? It really keeps this young core to age together. This team will be up there with some of the greatest of all time. But when we talk about this season itself, a year in which the stars of this team are all too young to really already be a leader of a dynasty, things most likely will not go as amazing as people have hyped it up to be after they won 16 consecutive games. They have already proven that they have the ability to defeat a team with one of the layers all great dynasties have. As the Miami Heat, the team Philadelphia defeated in the first round of the playoffs this season, have very good chemistry and a great coach in Eric Spoelstra, who has the most playoff experience out of all 29 NBA coaches, excluding Greg Popovich. However, they don't have the experience to overthrow any of the top teams in the East this year, but still, a first round victory to the Sixers is still a huge plus for them, considering the handful of atrocious seasons they've had before this year. At the end of the day, we do have to take into consideration the ages of the guys on this team, and if we are only looking at this year's playoffs alone, this factor will completely alter the 76ers' success this postseason. But when we look at the bigger picture, they have everything it takes to win themselves a championship. So there's my attempt to try and figure out one of the most confusing teams currently in the NBA. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, have yourself a great day. Goodbye.